Vice Chairman of the full committee, previous Chairman of this subcommittee, the gentleman from the 1st District of Texas, Mr. Gohmert.
Well, if the gentleman would allow me to yield to, how many decibels does that make? 120. Wow, okay, thank you. I really appreciate the witnesses here because this is an important hearing. This is critical. Marine mammals are suffering from one of the most egregious things that is being allowed to happen. And hopefully as a result of this hearing, we can find a way to stop noises that are 120 decibels. And I'm talking, of course, about the most common 120 decibel sound that is made and that does so much enormous damage, to quote my friend, to mammals. I'm, of course, talking about thunder. Thunder in the clouds. We've got to find a way to stop it because it is wreaking havoc and doing enormous damage.
Would the gentleman yield to identify a marine mammal that lives in the clouds, please?
They don't, well, I don't live in the clouds as opposed to some of my friends, and yet I can tell you air horns don't normally, they're a bother, and it bothered me a lot at sports events, but they bother me, and I live on the ground, and even when I'm underwater in a pool or ocean, thunder shakes things. My point is, and for some of our friends that don't understand sarcasm, there are things that occur in nature that are beyond any man-made ability to even come close to. But I want to go directly back to Ms. Martin. You note to date that there are no verified injuries or deaths of marine mammals from exposure to sounds produced during seismic surveys. The Bureau of Ocean Energy Management and the National Marine Fisheries Service stated this fact many times. Yet environmentalists keep claiming that these tests will result in hundreds of thousands of injuries and deaths to marine mammals. So I need to know, do these estimates take into account monitoring and mitigation practices that surveyors are required to implement per the agency regulations?
Congressman, I appreciate the question. Simple answer is no, they do not. In fact, those estimates in the often quoted 138,000 injuries or deaths is an extreme exaggeration of the MMPA take estimation. Those are simply estimates of exposure to sound, not actual impacts estimated to occur. And Dr. Bill Brown of the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management said himself that 138,000 was an exaggeration, conservative assumption, built on conservative analysis, and they did not expect any of those exposures or impacts to occur.
Now, we know thunder has been at 120 decibels, and that I don't know of any way to mitigate those sounds. They do transfer, and the sound waves do travel underwater, but with successful use of mitigation practices, is it realistic to say that a seismic survey will result in hundreds of thousands of marine mammal deaths?
Again, thank you for the question. No, it is not a reasonable statement to make.
Under the Marine Mammal Protection Act, a take, T-A-K-E, is broadly defined as an act that has the potential to injure a marine mammal or cause a change in behavior. Would a change in behavior include an animal swimming away or perhaps swimming up to a seismic survey to interact with the vessel?
That's correct. A change of behavior includes simple change in direction of the swim pattern of the marine mammal.
So any change, including swimming up and becoming friendly, would be considered a take?
That's correct, under current definition under Marine Mammal Protection Act.
Since the definition of take is so broad, then the permitting process doesn't take into account the effects of mitigation practices So it's not surprising at all that these seismic surveys come with such high estimates or potential takes. Would you agree that these estimates are often misleading in numbers, since the takes can include just swimming away or swimming up to a vessel?
Congressman, I would agree that by not incorporating mitigation measures into the estimates, they are overly conservative, but I would also point to the consistent findings of thriving, stable marine life populations alongside seismic surveying in both the Chukchi and Beaufort Seas and the Gulf of Mexico, where seismic surveys have been conducted for over 50 years.
And again, I direct my friends back to the Gulf of Mexico, where drilling with loud noises has produced enormous amount of new underwater life. Thank you. Yield back.
The chair now recognizes and welcomes to the committee